Hey, this is the Geek Protagonist, and yeah, this is my response. And like I said, I'm playing catch up. I got a lot of things out. So for the rest of this video, I'm gonna be doing that format I told you about, where you don't always see me. Um, this is my opener because I'm now editing the video. So when I did it, I wasn't on visual because I wasn't feeling great. Uh, Maybe one day I'll talk about it. I have headaches and I got personal things that happen sometimes. Yeah. But this is just the intro because I'm editing it now. So get ready because here it comes. Superheroes are cops and cops are bad. And the article is We're re examining how we portray cops on screen. Now it's time to talk about superheroes. Here we go. Okay, so there's this article that was out pretty much saying that cops are evil, so now superheroes are basically as per usual. The situation completely escalates. So the Wild Ones went from cops to sports to syrup, now superhero cancel time. Since things have been a bit, I guess you could say, woke these last few years, time to use an equality movement to push inequality. So, you take one part BLM plus two parts cancel with a dash of hate it can do attitude, and voila, this bow down to everything said mentality. And what I mean by that is that basically this is pretty much the articles how it did. It used the BLM movement, it used cancel culture, it like took all of these things and put them together. So for the rest of this video, and as you're already seeing on screen, I'm just going to be putting superheroes on the screen because I think this article is ridiculous. So, okay, Time Magazine. Sure, superheroes are cops. I think this article is written, what's her name? Elania Docorman. If I'm saying it right, I apologize if I'm not. Uh, the issue with POC heroes, as she proved, is about POC struggles, but most times don't deep dive on the hero. You can talk about it, but to focus all on it, it is a failure. Why they fall for, or sorry, why they fall or they don't get over, it's a little wild. So, let's go through this article. She has here, I'm sorry, it's Eliana Doctorman. In the past several weeks, as calls to defund the police have gone mainstream, pop culture critics and fans have been reconsidering how Hollywood heroizes cops. Legal procedurals and shoot 'em up action movies have long presented a skewed perception of the justice system in America, in which the police are almost always positioned as the good guy. These good cops narratives are rarely balanced out with the stories of systemic racism in the criminal justice system. The bad guys, as she puts in quotes, they pursue are often people of color, their characters undeveloped beyond their criminality. So, off of that alone, right? Let's go through in my head cops that are bad. Like cop movies that I can think of off the top of my head. Oh, kick the table. You got Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, Casablanca with Captain Lewis, The Departed, Lakeview Terrace, Gone Baby Gone, Killer Joe, LA Confidential, Leon the Professional, Street Kings, Training Day, Dark Blue, Wild Things, Rampart, Narc, Rambo First Blood. But, sure, no bad cop movies. And those are just, I watch a lot of movies, and those are the ones I can just think off the top of my head. And usually their bosses, a lot of times, are black. Now, villains that were not POCs, since she's saying the criminals are, all POCs, apparently, pretty much. If memory serves, I could be wrong, villains that aren't POCs that I can think of. Lethal Weapon 1 and 2. Oh, yeah. Rush Hour, the FBI guys were kind of bad because they actually lied. They had good intentions, but they lied on an investigation. Sorry, my brain went sideways. Anyway, like I said, if I remember correctly, Lethal Weapon 1, Lethal Weapon 2, Tango and Cash, The Last Boy Scout, Running Scared, Stakeout, Bad Boys, The Heat, Hot Fuzz, The Other Guys, 21 Jump Street, Beverly Hills Cop, 7, and In the Heat of the Night. And also, which is one of the coolest lines and one of the coolest movies, with Sidney Poitier, which is the sequel to In the Heat of the Night before they started the TV shows. They call me Mr. Tibbs. Look, I don't care. You want to see just some awesome, I just watched that trailer. They call me Mr. Tibbs. It's just greatness. Anyway, so they're doing this whole thing, and like I said, I'm just touching on parts throughout, but she has this thing with cops with capes as a part of this section, right? Even though about 90% of superheroes are vigilantes, characters like Spider-Man were trashed and tased for years. Batman 2, Batman dealt with corruption in the police department, hence became Batman, which of course means the only person he could trust in that police department is Jim Gordon. But remember, cops are always portrayed as heroes, right? Basically, heroes, these guys do the jobs that cops can't handle or won't. So now we're going to go to superheroes have dominated popular culture for the last decade. This is her time. They are fixtures of the highest grossing movies and icons to more than just our children. They are beacons of inspiration. Protesters dressed as Spider-Man and Batman have turned up at recent Black Lives Matter demonstrations. And yet, what are superheroes except cops with capes who enact justice with their powers? Even though I literally just pointed out several characters prior to this to preface this, that if they're cops with capes, why are they getting chased by cops? But I'll continue. With a few notable exceptions, more on those later, most superhero stories star, and I was waiting for this, ring the bell. Most superhero stories star straight white men who either function as an extension of a broken U.S. justice system or as vigilantes without any checks on their power. So, what does the whole straight white men have to do with anything? So, with this, what? If you make all the superheroes black, does that change anything? Are you going to have a person sit there and go, well, wait a minute, I need to have a black guy save me. Don't help me, Spider-Man. Let's wait for Power Man. Like, come on. And by you literally saying the U.S. justice system or as vigilantes without any checks on their powers, so not cops. You just killed your own point. You literally just killed your own point. You just said that these guys are cops with capes. Cops have checks and balances to their power. A cop, yeah, I know. Cops sometimes get away with some criminal activity, but a cop can't just walk into a mall, unload on everybody, and go, whatever, I saved the world. No, they're going to get arrested. Ugh. You knew it was coming with the freaking race and gender prejudice. Usually they have some sort of tentative relationship with the government. The Avengers work for the secretive agency Shield. Batman takes orders from Gotham Police Commissioner Gordon. Even the villainous members of the Suicide Squad execute government orders in exchange for commuted prison sentences. And even when superheroes function outside the justice system, they're sometimes idolized by the police because they are able to skirt the law to get the job done. So let's break down that statement and show you that this person and many of these people who comment on these things, like they say these things, have no idea what they're talking about. And I kind of wish they would just not do it and kind of shut up. My personal opinion. Um, let's start with usually they have some sort of tentative relationship with government. No, or Civil War wouldn't have happened in the movie. Not comics, except for like 4 stories where you have Secret Avengers, versus the Avengers, later arcs, and the Ultimates, which you did not mention the Ultimates, who actually work for Shield. The guys do not work for Shield or anything. When you watch the movie like Captain America, Civil War, you see that the government decided to step in. So yeah, there's that, and then you have this. Batman doesn't take orders from the police or Commissioner Gordon. How have you had all this content and you don't know that? Now, let's talk about the Suicide Squad and how that actually shows that our government is corrupted. Because it wasn't just, oh, we're going to take their sentences down. It was also, hey, a military op that if you don't do this, your choice is this or death. So, as of this article, not at all. Then we were talking about this whole, they're idolized by the police. Well, people idolize them too. Or did you not see, for example, Batman The Dark Knight, where the guy wore the hockey suit and Batman said, I don't wear hockey pads because he was inspired? Or Spider Island, where a bunch of people started to try to do superhero things because they were inspired by Spider Man? But, okay, comic book reader and consumer, where you already clearly proven you don't consume this stuff. You just sit there and just drool while you're looking at funny pictures, apparently. I don't know, because this Batman's been around for over 80 years and you still don't know he doesn't take orders from Commissioner Gordon in like every incarnation. You're confusing me. I digress. Uh, Now, she has a part here. In fact, real life police officers sometimes adopt the symbolism of these rogue anti heroes. The Punisher, a brutal vigilante, introduced in 1974. Um, in a 2019 story, a group of police fanboys run up to the Punisher and say, "We believe in you." One shows off a Punisher skull sticker on his car. The Punisher rips the sticker and says, "We're not the same. You took an oath to uphold the law. You help people. I gave up that a long time ago. You don't know. You don't do what I do. Nobody does." Another cop replies, "Like it or not, you started something. You showed us how it's done." Frank Castle wages war as he did in the military, and now he does it on there because, his family. But now, if you take out the cops and you put in a citizen character like Batman the Dark Knight, people will still react this way. The cops will still react if he's fixing the city or fixing the problem. This isn't just a cop thing. They just use the cops because they're the authority. But okay. The Punisher is representative, this is her again, of a larger problem in superhero narratives where Batman ignores orders and goes rogue. Once again, he is not a cop. He doesn't take orders from the police. He's only ever been even deputized, I think, in the 60s show, and even then, they just call him for help, and he goes, handles it himself. But okay, moving on until you bring it up again. There's no oversight committee to assess whether Bruce Wayne's bias influences who he brings to justice and how. Heroes like Iron Man and KG feel guilt about the casualties they inflict, but ultimately empower themselves again and again to draw those moral lines. You mean like a vigilante who takes the rules and the law into their own hands? You mean like that? You mean like that? You do understand if you actually consumed any of the products instead of talking out of the side of your forehead that Batman does get called out on his actions. He get called out by Alfred and Superman and sometimes Nightwing and even Catwoman. He doesn't take orders from anyone because Batman is that. But those characters do counterpoint him and will actually go against him and try to talk to him about that. Duh. If you read a comic, you would know that. Anyway, in the real world, this is her again. Meanwhile, tolerance for law enforcement acting with impunity is eroding. Those calling for the dismantling of modern policing point in part to the lack of consequences faced by officers who have killed black people like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Elijah McClain, and others without being fired or prosecuted. Except, the cops that did take out George Floyd has been arrested, and the reason why they haven't gone to trial yet is because trials are and everything is going slow right now during with this pandemic. Yes, they need to go after the police that did Breonna Taylor, but that still doesn't have things to do with the police and the superheroes in the comic books. Her again, what's more, given that the creators and stars of these movies have historically been white men, it's hardly surprising that so few reckon with the issues of systemic racism, let alone sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and other forms of bigotry embedded in the justice system or the inherent biases these superheroes might carry with them as they patrol the streets or the universe. She keeps talking about these biases. First, what does that mean to a person wearing a costume to save folks? So the way you're talking, you're saying with superpowers mean you should do nothing but forcefully stop systemic racism. So you want Superman to fly into the White House and fly around and go, hey, if everyone doesn't do exactly what I say, when I say it and how I say it, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to take you down. Oh, wait, that story's called Injustice. And who was the villain of that? Oh, Superman with a totalitarian society. But sure, all the superheroes should use their powers to do it. You mean like Doctor Doom did for a while? With Latveria when he tried to take over? How about when Magneto was trying to stop racism by, murdering humans? You mean like that? That's what you're saying, right? How about Red Skull? Red Skull believes in a certain type of people and everyone else should be wiped out, and he believes that that's a way to fight the racism by destroying everything because of the fact that, in all intents and purposes, everyone is a mistake. Yeah, kind of breaks your whole argument down to very dumb because people that force themselves like that, they're usually the villains because they're forcing their ideals. But, let's while we're talking about all this, though, let's ignore, since you're saying that no one talks about this apparently, let's ignore the X-Men, Starfire, Iceman, Black Lightning, John Stewart, Martian Manhunter in Supergirl and out, John Constantine, almost all the CW shows, Black Panther, etc. Now, we have the next section, a new kind of hero. Woke white lady to know all about every other race and culture, and she's going to tell you about it. That's pretty much what this is. There is some history of reckoning with policing in a black superhero, well, in black superhero films. Blade is not a superhero; he's a vampire hunter. Uh, Shows your knowledge again. You shouldn't be talking about this, but I digress. The 1998 Wesley Snipes superhero movie launched the superhero movie boom we're still in today, giving Marvel its first box office, not the MCU, that was Lionsgate, but he is a Marvel character, smash. The movie, written and directed by white men, references tensions between black communities and the police, even though that's never talked about in the film. In one scene, two cops walk in on Blade fighting what is clearly a monstrous vampire and begin shooting Blade instead. Blade turns around and asks, "Are you out of your damn mind?" Now, you forgot that he also said MFer. And she puts here, it's played as a throwaway moment, but one that rings true decades on. Okay, let's unpack this one. First, lady, it's a joke that cops shot the good guy. Also, too, you made an oopsie. They shot at both of them. They just happened to hit Blade when Blade turned around. Same thing happened in The Dark Knight Rises. Same thing happened in the Hellboy reboot. Same thing happened with Wolverine and X2, where they got shot at because that's a joke. That's a trope. The hero gets shot at by the police. Oh, by the way, they also shot at him in Batman Begins, if I remember correctly, or Batman Year One. Huh. Next, more recently, racial injustice has become the centerpiece for some superhero films. The clearest example of that shift is Black Panther, Ryan Coogler's 2018 superhero movie that takes as its main subject the oppression of by POCs, whatever that means, people worldwide. In that movie, Black Panther, aka T'Challa, rules over Wakanda, a scheduled scientifically advanced African country, unfettered by colonialism. He faces off against a would-be usurper named Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, who argues that Wakanda must abandon its policies of isolationism and help combat systemic oppression across the world. Great, you're about to make me come at a movie that I actually like. So, one of my things is better, but let's dig in since you want to mess up and ruin everything. The movie is about a xenophobic isolationist society that, instead of bettering the world with their tech, with their hordes of resources, um, and all their medical breakthroughs, like how they could, heal a guy from a bullet wound in a span of 24 hours, and, whatnot, things like that. By the way, these people also let white colonizers take over Africa while they had the means to stop them the entire time. They've always been ahead in technology. They did nothing. But this is about race relations, right? Except they stayed as an isolationist group and they were xenophobic and they did nothing. But yeah, they're great. Now, here she is again. T'Challa arc is to realize his nemesis is right. While Killmonger and his father broke laws and enacted violence for their cause, their conviction that people of color have historically lacked the tools to fight systemic oppression was correct. Except in this universe, they had the tools of doing it, they just didn't. They chose not to. T'Challa eventually comes to represent a compromise between the two viewpoints. He uses his relative privilege to empower people who have been held back by colonialism and racism, but finds nonviolent methods to do so. At the end of the movie, T'Challa opens a community center in Killmonger's hometown of Oakland. So, first, let's start with this. Killmonger's purpose was that only black people would be on top and everyone else would bow down. Technically, even though there's no such thing as reverse racism, he would be committing reverse racism in the sense that if the idea is that Caucasian people are on top ruling everything, now the black people will be on top ruling everything, doing the exact same thing, saying it's our turn, make the world burn, legitimately doing the exact same thing that he's talking about the oppressors. Also, you want them to act the way you've been trying to condemn heroes to for acting this way. Basically doing things with no, impunities whatsoever, no checks and balances. But now it's okay. Now, okay, cool. You could go with that too about him opening community center. What about the nations with the slaves? Or the nations that are still controlled by the colonists. Still poor, still disease ridden. Now you take America, a country that has nowhere near as much oppression. So instead, maybe they could help Africa, I guess, in Black Panther 2, maybe? Even though they could have done this the whole time. Now, I knew a guy I worked with from Africa, and when he told me about his childhood, it was very different. It was like the stuff you would see in a movie, like he lived in a hut, he used to have to wash clothes by hand and everything, and they moved because of all the stuff that was happening with the apartheids and stuff. A lot of dangerous things were going on, so they ended up finding their way to America. But yeah, perfect, right? Even though, once again, why would you open it in Oakland instead of maybe a place that really could use it that may not even have an education system and is asking for, as they say, a few cents, which is a cup of coffee a day, to help these people? When superheroes and cops collide, it's not just that superheroes act like members of law enforcement, sometimes they interact with them directly. Spider Man has long had a complicated relationship with the NYPD. Last year, Spider Man video game received some pushback over the many critics called propaganda in that game. Peter Parker is a fan of the police, even fantasizing about being Spider Cop. He spends much of the game fixing the surveillance towers for the NYPD. Okay, first and foremost, you are completely lying. Propaganda is a word that was created in 2020. That game came out in 2019. So no, that's you just blatantly lying. And there was no criticism about him in the cops whatsoever. Anywhere I looked. And I found nothing old that talked about it. So yeah. Now, also in that game, since apparently you don't seem to consume the products you feel that you have the authority to speak about, what about the bad cop that was in the game? Also trying to work with law enforcement since he is basically calling for a citizen's arrest. He can't do nothing unless the cops bring them, to justice, but okay, sure. Now you have Miles, this is her again, who is half Puerto Rican, is the son of a cop, and 2018's animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Miles' father doesn't know his son's secret identity. Miles spends much of the movie trying to reconcile his father's love for him with his dislike for Spider-Man as a vigilante. Because you're talking about him like he's not in the game, which he is. So yeah, because she's trying to make a point about contentious racism, but and how it's all white, whatever. But he's in the game, Dodo. Now we go to the next part. A Spider-Verse sequel is in the works, and many fans hope it will focus more on Miles and less on Peter, and deal with race more directly. No, they don't. Stop making up fake facts. Before that, a Miles Morales video game will arrive, hopefully with more nuanced take on the NYPD than the game that preceded it, with Spider-Man, who's a young man of color in a city with a painful recent history of stop and frisk policies disproportionately inflicting trauma on young black and brown men. It will be striking oversight if it doesn't. So what you're basically saying is that they should explore Miles's anger and a black man's anger towards the cops. Like his father, his dad, who is a cop. So he should hate cops because his dad, who was a very heroic person and influences Miles' life, is now, but he should hate cops. Why would he hate cops if his dad was one? So in a video game, that would be a 180 kind of change. Why would he do that? Also, too, they don't know he's black or a person of color. And if the police are doing their job, why would they need to go into that? That's not what this game is even about. But of course, you're trying to force that narrative because why? Anyway, no. His dad's a cop, so you're pretty much saying he should call cops trash, like his father. In recognition of its relevance to the current moment, HBO made all episodes briefly available to watch for free over the Juneteenth. This is about Watchmen, the show. Unlike Moore's story, which ultimately becomes a tale of white men fighting over power, Lindelof's story show begins with the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. First, Watchmen had nothing to do with white men with a race of power. It is questioning the series is questioning the power and how and what they would do with it, good or bad. Also about a lie in Can That Save the World? The show, on the other hand, pushed a different narrative and ended or canceled after one season because it was doing something else and trying to tell a different story to do that. After that, but by the way, if that was the case, Veidt would have tried to become the leader. So you failed again. After that preface, the show fast forwards to modern day Tulsa and centers primarily on Angela, a cop pursuing a white nationalist terrorist group akin to the KKK. In order to fight them, cops have begun to cover their faces and adopt superhero alter egos. The portrayal of the police is complicated. Angela, a black woman, is a cop and the hero of the show. She also does some objectable things like kicking the crap out of a suspect in the interrogation room and lying to the FBI. You mean like how in Watchmen, that's how superheroes were born, when the cops started to wear costumes because the villains started to wear costumes, so they did the exact same thing and went outside the law and did that because they were cops. If you watch the movie, the guy even says it. The first Owlman says, and they explain that they were originally cops who went outside the law. But now you're praising her, sure. Now you do this part the way forward. If Hollywood is to do better in telling these stories, more creators of color need to be given the reins to tell them. It's worth noting that while Lindelof employed a diverse writer's room, it likely took his name and cash as a creator of Lost and Leftovers to get such an ambitious story greenlit. So, instead of trying to tell a good story, you, lady, are obsessed with the idea of the woke. Uh, this is why a lot of comic books, movies, and shows keep flopping and failing. To bring in diversity and whatnot, um, pretty much in the most laziest way possible. You can have inclusion, you can have diversity, but that shouldn't be the center of your story or the people that you're hiring. You should be hiring people for their skill. Stop thinking diversity hires is the answer. Think of talent. Talent is the answer. Think of everyone equally. But by sitting there going, well, you have to have a diverse writer's room, you have to do this or something's wrong. Well, if it's working, hey, you do understand if a whole writer's room is nothing but a bunch of black, let's say black men, that's not a diverse writings room. That's a bunch of black men. They're now the majority. Now you can say, well, they're a minority thing, but no, if you're doing diversity, diverse means differences. That's why I say inclusion instead of diversity, because diversity, people have perverted the word. But inclusion means people are included. Doesn't matter your skin and whatever, you come from different walks of life. Because diversity shouldn't also just mean I'm a black man. No, if a black man was born into a family of millionaires and a black man was born in South Central, they're going to have two different lifestyles and two different things. That's still a diverse thing right there. But the way you're talking about bringing everyone and being the same. I gotcha. But and what you're saying, that is different. It is not right. And if you do a show with all women, that's not a diverse cast. It's just all women. Now you have to do races. Like, stop doing these check marks. The reason why a lot of these movies like Terminator, Will Fate, and all of them keep failing is because instead of trying to tell the story, you guys are promoting it saying men are bad or this is that. You can tell the story and still get that message across, but you need to remember the story comes first. And what you're proposing, how about you read the comics you're talking about first, thinking that Batman takes orders from Commissioner Gordon and erase things what I just proved to you. And you have people like Jordan Peele, Lily Singh, you know, women, even though a lot of people don't like her show. I haven't really watched much about it. Um, when you're casting the black, you still, even then, need to pick the best person for it or anything. Comics with diversity, check marks. Note what I said, diversity check marks that have the fix where they go, okay, we got this person or that is not the way to go about it, and it doesn't work. And that's why sales have been down. Well, one of the reasons, there's others too, like who you're marketing to. But you can tell a story, give a diversity thing without stopping the story or breaking the story to do it. All white men, all white women, or all black men, black women, all this stuff. No. You need to look at it from equal opportunity. It should not matter the person's skin, gender, age, none of that stuff. It only should matter in the experiences of you need to check their work and see if that work fits what you need. These people need to come with new ideas and things like that. Writers must also, this is her again, writers must also shake the notion that they are bound by the strictures of outdated intellectual property. Today's few big budget projects move forward unless they are based on existing IP. Oh, by the way, for the previous point too, yeah, people with their name is going to do what they do. That's how you get it. You get clout with names. But the success of Watchmen suggests that the creators can snatch up those familiar characters and still weave a new story, with new politics, with a new perspective, using only fragments of what came before, just as the Watchmen series is a radical departure from the Dusty Reagan graphic novel. Love how you say that, like you're a writer. Both Black Panther and Into the Spider-Verse borrowed the names and backstories of their characters from the comics, but took those characters in new ambitious directions. Not really. So, in closing for me, no. Stop taking old IPs and changing them to fit your narrative. That's weak and lazy and garbage. Stop saying, well, I took this character, but see, because that's not the character. That's not been the character. So changing the character radically like that is wrong. But then, of course, when the real fans who have loved it all this time, all their lives for decades, you just walk in and change it and then insult them with the istaphobe rhetoric. Call them alt-right man babies and all these other things, then are confused as the product has no long-lasting effect, loses money, and in the market and it's gone and you're wondering why. Then as things grow big, then fail hard, like locusts, you move on to the next one to destroy it. Steven Universe, Adventure Time, Amazing World of Gumball, Regular Show, Get Out, Medea's series, Life is Strange, etc. All new IPs made by people with clear agendas, not bad or good, doesn't matter which way, but was accepted because it made its own fan base. To create takes time and talent. You're suggesting a little talent with a modern day on-side propaganda twist, even if the property had barely anything to do with it. Voltron put in and spread out, and so did Legend of Korra with the whole homosexuality thing, and it was perfectly done because they still told an amazing story, and they put it in there. Yeah, there's some complaints, but overall, they told a narrative. You can still say, hey, this is what's happening, and that's not the main focus, but that was a plot of it because a person's skin and who they are isn't always their only part of their story. Especially if a person is from the letter community. I'm sick and tired of people writing stories about them, and their main thing is, I'm gay. No, I have family members in that community. I have friends in that community. They're more than just their sexuality and who they're sleeping with. But that's what you people try to do. It takes skill and talent to respect what came before while forging a new path, like Voltron and like Legend of Korra, being their own, not changing it all and then call everyone names who has any issue with it. I'd rather you make up a new thing. You try, you fail, and you learn versus to twist something into some weird thing that's already been fine and you can't hear anything but your own adulation while you smell your own farts thinking it's the best thing ever. Also, way to stay on task about superhero cops being bad to this race argument. All black uh stuff and all this with the race and everything, you just went like off the deep end and off the hinges. But, why talk about the cops in any form of light other than this, even while you made up your fake facts and did everything and, all this black craziness and all that. But yeah, teach me and everyone about it. Superheroes are necessary. Superheroes are there for a reason. Superheroes are great characters, and you disrespecting them and trying to put fake narratives when you don't even know who they talk to, who they answer to, who they work for, because if you were referencing the Ultimates, that'd be one thing, but you said the Avengers. So sorry, your whole article is nothing but a failure. Geek Protagonist, you stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real. See ya. Hey, thank you for visiting my channel. This is the Geek Protagonist. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Please, it'll really help me out in the channel if you actually share these videos. If you like what I'm doing, please hit that bell notification. Hit it, click. This way you won't miss any of my videos. Also, there's a thing on there that says personal and all. Hit the all. This way you'll get them every time for the notifications. I'm trying to, grow, trying to do commentary about what's going on. And I want to thank you again. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay real. This is the Geek Protagonist. I'm out, and I'll see you.